Hey everybody, Rory from ANSgear. We're upstairs with two guns on the table today. We've got an ETHA 3, we've got an Axe 2.0. The Axe 2.0 happens to be on sale at the time of doing this video, but typically they are right around the same price as each other, with the ETHA 3 being about 400 or 550 and the Axe 2 being about 500 bucks or so. So price-wise, very similar to each other. And we get a lot of questions, what's the difference? What's the difference between an Axe 2.0? What's the difference between an ETHA 3? Or which one's better? Or what are the features? Or whatever it happens to be between the two. So it's a good opportunity to go through that. Talk about the ETHA 3, talk about the Axe 2.0, compare, contrast, do all those things between those two guns, because at the price point, they are very popular markers and a lot of people are picking them up left and right. So let's take a look. Let's get the guns out of the way first. We'll go through the boxes and just see what you're getting in the Axe 2.0 box, ETHA 3 box. Round and round she goes. So inside here, if we lift the lid off of this one, we've got a cutout for the gun to sit in, right on the top right there. We lift that up. We have a cover right there, which is just a thin little piece of cardboard. And then we've got basically a tray where our gun is going to sit in. Now, I think the foam is cooler. So I don't know if it's more protective. I've never seen these come really damaged or crushed or anything like that. It's formed for the gun to fit inside there and sit down in it. So that's the difference on that part. Take the top off of this one. There's no top to take off of this one. But here we've got a barrel sleeve. The place to hold our barrels, we've already got them on the gun though. Same thing here, our barrel would go here and here for our tip and our back. We have a little parts kit right there. We've got a barrel sleeve, so the same. We've got a, excuse me, big old tube of grease right here. So you're gonna get more grease than you do in this. An Allen key set, an almost full set of Allen keys right there. A good set of Allen keys. In this one, you've got two Allen keys in that, down in there. And then a very comprehensive spares kit in the Planet Eclipse ETHA 3. And that's typical of the Planet Eclipse guns. All of their guns come with grease or oil, Allen key set, and a full assortment of rebuild O-rings for the gun. Now this one you do get a couple of O-rings and a couple of screws and stuff like that, but not nearly the depth of the repair kit between the two. But you do still get some stuff. But as far as what you get in the box, I think they've got it on that one. I think maybe these guys' packaging is a little bit nicer with the foam, but I like the parts that come in that. All right. Slide these out of the way. I'm going to take these off their stand real quick so we can put them on the table. Get over there. And then here we go. All right. So right off the bat, we'll start with the barrels because they're kind of sticking out and we can move them off of there and get rid of them and make it easier to just have stuff on the table. So they both come with a two-piece barrel, and I believe they are both the same bore size. 688. I'm pretty sure this is 688 or it's 689. I don't remember. So many barrels. 689. So relatively the same size as far as bore goes. Both two-piece, both Cocker threaded. So if you're looking for aftermarket barrels, or if you're looking for accessories for barrels and things like that, they're going to take a lot of the stuff that's out there. You're going to find tons of options for upgraded barrel sets, things like that. So that's not a big deal. Barrels, awesome, good two-piece barrels, plenty of upgrades for them. All right, let's start from the top, work our way down. They both have a lever feed neck on them. So this can be opened and closed to clamp on the loader that's going down inside there. Both of them are adjustable right here. This one requires an Allen key to adjust it though. So if you are, let me come in a little closer here. If you're looking to adjust this and you happen to be out on the field or at the chrono station and you don't have an Allen key with you, might be a little bit of an issue if you have a loose hopper that's on there. Hopefully that's something you would have checked at the bench before you walked over to the chrono, but it happens. I found myself at the chrono station having to fix something that I didn't have parts for. This one here, also, again, lever. The nice thing about this is the feed neck is aluminum. The feed neck on this is composite. I've never seen one break, but one's aluminum, one's composite. So you can take that as you want. Plus, this has an adjustable thumb wheel on it. So rather than it just being an Allen key that you got to stick in there to change it, you could open this one up and spin this with your thumb, tighten it down a little bit more, and then clamp it down. So that has a little bit higher adjustability. Nah, wrong word. Ability to be adjusted without tools. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Toolless adjustability right there over that one. It's a little different right there. Let's work our way down a little bit farther. The bodies on this, aluminum body, that's good right there. On this one, this is a composite outer shell to the body. So underneath this is an aluminum body, but it slides inside this outer shell. So you can replace the shell with other styles. You can 3D print your own shells. You can do all sorts of stuff. So if you want to change the way this looks, you can buy shells for it. You can make your own shells for it. Excuse me, a little under the weather. You can buy your own shells for it and put them on there. So you do have a little bit of user customizability on that. Whether you need to do that or whether you're going to do that, I don't know, but the option is there for you. Coming down right underneath to the eye covers right here. So the eye covers on both of these guns are composite. And they both have underneath a brake beam eye system inside there. So the eye systems are good right there. We take those off. Take this off. Detent systems, eerily similar between the two. In fact, you can take a Planet Eclipse detent and put it in the Axe 2.0 or vice versa. So if you're ever looking for detents and you maybe have a couple of these and you need one for this, throw them in there. No big deal. Easy to do. One, I would say, benefit to the eye system in the ETHA right here. They use basically I'm going to call it a periscope. They call it a light pipe, but it's like a periscope in a submarine in the way it works. This one right here on the Axe 2.0, you've got a wire that goes down inside here, and on the other side you have another sensor over on there too. So the sensors are looking at each other across, and they're monitoring whether there's a paintball in the stack. If a paintball blows up inside the breech right here, you chop it, or it's a bad ball and it breaks, whatever, paint can get on the eye, and it can cause that eye to fault. Now, once it gets cleaned out and everything, it goes back to being normal, that's fine. What they've done in the Planet Eclipse gun is the eye, I'll show you, the eye is actually down here. You see that little sensor down there? The eye is at the bottom of the breech. It's not directly across from the breech. It's actually completely away from the breech. It's not in the breech at all. So what they're doing is the sensor right there is looking through the bottom of this, and the signal that's coming through is basically coming in here, being reflected down, and then being reflected back out to the sensor that's inside here. So the sensor is actually looking up kind of in a bracket. So if the ball breaks inside of here, paint doesn't actually get on the sensor. It gets on the eye pipe right here, which can be popped off and cleaned, and then put back on. Now you still have to clean it. You still have to get in there and do the work, But there are a lot of people who don't. And a lot of people, or a lot of paint, I should say, gets on these and it starts to eat away the plastic, eventually causes it to fail and need to be replaced. If we can keep as much grime, dirt, and debris away from the sensor itself, the sensor is going to last longer. It's a good idea right there. Keep it away, keep it clean, keep it from being able to fault, keep it from getting dirty. If it does have a problem, you clean it out, and then it goes back to being fine. So rather than having to replace the eye sensor itself, you just replace the parts that are above it. So there you go on that. That's something. Something to think about. Woo. All right, moving on. Since we're in this body area right now, let's take the bolts out. So both bolts come out relatively simple. This one has a little button you push on there, and then you can pull that out and have the whole thing come out. This one, lift up the cap, pops out right there. So this bolt is completely air, or this engine I should say, not bolt, is air driven in all directions. When it's moving forward, when it's moving backwards, when it's just moving in general, it is driven by air. The axe bolt is driven in one direction by air, and it is returned by a spring. So the feeling of the shot is a little bit different. Efficiency-wise, they're both pretty efficient guns. So I'm not going to say one is substantially better than the other when it comes to efficiency. They definitely feel and sound different when they shoot. I don't know which is a preference that you would like, but they are different. So, I mean, this is kind of a thing that you just have to go and shoot yourself and find out. This does have a bolt that comes right off, so your bolt and your spring right there. It is inherently important with this gun that the spring be put on the right direction. There's one side where it does not want to slide on. There's one side where it easily slides on. You always want to take the harder path there and go on with the side that it doesn't want to slide on. Because when the spring compresses, it's going to rotate, and it needs to be bigger on one end than the other to accommodate the compression of the spring. So if you put it the other way around, you're going to have the bolt kind of go through a narrower part of the spring, and it will scratch and have some problems. So that is very important that that goes on there. This bolt over here, I mean, you can't assemble it wrong. If you assemble it wrong, it's not going to work. All the parts need to go together in a certain way. If you don't, it doesn't work. This one, if you put it together wrong, you can damage it in a way. This one, you're not going to do that. It's just not going to, it's going to leak. I'm not going to get into really the internal specifics of the gun or of the bolt per se. This one, you know, I don't know. This one is adjusted velocity-wise through the back right here. So depending on how the poppet and the cup seal inside here, which is that piece down there, how long this opens for to allow air to come through and push the ball out, it's going to determine velocity. And by adjusting this, you're controlling how quickly the poppet is going to shut back down and allow the air to come out. This really isn't done that way. This is just controlled through overall pressure through the gun as far as how the gun shoots. So a difference in physically how the bolt works right there, which I think for this aspect of what we're talking about, not necessarily that important as to physically how each different bolt works inside of there. We're talking, you know, generalizations here as to what is different. The bolts are different though, completely different in how they operate, but they both, you know, both use air, so they're the same that way. This one just has a spring in it as well. Not to say that this one doesn't have a spring in it, because it does. So anyway, we're getting carried away here. Let's move past the bolt. We'll head on down the front of the gun here. So up the front of the gun here, we do have a rubber grip that you can pop off of there. On the back side has a button. You push the button, the gun's going to turn on. There's a light on the back of the grip right here, which is going to give you the information that you need to know as to what the gun is doing, whether the eyes are on, eyes are off, eyes are faulting, you know, all that stuff right there. This is where you do your programming as well. So you're going to program depending on the eye right there. So if If you had the gun off and you held the trigger down and you turned the gun on, it's going to boot up into a programming mode, and then you would use the trigger to cycle through your options and change things through there. So the interface is pretty straightforward. You do need to either have the manual with you or memorize how and what the colors are telling you so that you know what you're changing. That's the same for this gun over here. You hit the button on the side right here, the gun powers on, and then you've got a light that's blinking off the side to tell you what's going on with the gun, whether the eyes are on, eyes are off, ball's in breech, no ball in the breech. And then when you're doing your programming, you're going to reference that light as well to do your programming. So as far as how the guns function, as far as electronics, very, very similar to each other. Runs on a 9-volt battery. We pop this front off right here. We'll see that this runs on a 9-volt battery. So they're both 9-volt battery operation. Always have an extra one in your bag at all times, right there. Triggers are adjustable. So you've got options on whether you want it to be further away, closer, activation points, things like that. So those are relatively the same as well. The grips on these. So if you want to take these grips off, you got to remove a bunch of screws to take your grips off if you want to clean or whatever. The grips on this one right here do pop off easier on the rear section right here. So if we want to do that, we can pull that off, and we can pull that off. No screws or anything needed to disassemble the grips on the back of this gun here. The front grip is composite on this one. This one is rubber, so this one has maybe a little bit better feel to the front of it right there. But this is all one piece right here. So if I was to remove this screw and this screw, the whole thing would come off. So I say when it comes to doing separation maintenance right there, this one is easier to do. Rear screw for the frame, pop that off. Get that down here. Middle frame screw, take that off. And I'm done right there. That's off. Here's my board that has my 2 sensors on it right there, my solenoids right back here. Easy to get to, easy to service. I can take my eyes off, I can clean out what is there. If I wanted to remove the inner housing, the aluminum body, grab onto that, I can pull that out, and then I've got just my shell sitting right there. So easy to do. This one, on the other hand, let me show you what is required if I wanted to take this frame off of right here. So a little bit different. To get the frame off the gun, like I've done for this one over here, I do have to remove the front grip. So I got to take these screws off. On that one over there, on the ETHA, I don't need to remove any screws to get the grip off. All right, so I got those 4 screws out. I can take my rubber front grip off. All right, now here's our 9-volt battery, sits right inside of there. Now we've got a front frame screw right there. So this holds the front in position right there. I got to remove this screw off. I can get to that. Then I can come in here and I can take my rear frame screw off. And then I can take my front frame screw off. And then once I'm done with that, I can carefully separate my body and my frame, and I can slide them up and slide them off. Now, this is important right here. I'm not even close to being done. If I want to get to the board, the upper board that's inside here, so there's 2 boards in this gun. We've got our sensor board, which is up in the top. This has our micro switch on it. This has our connection for our eyes that run up inside of here. And then there's a board right up in here. So this is our programming board, or our main board right now. So this is where we do all our programming for that. If I want to get to this board that's underneath here, I still have to take the solenoid off. you don't need to take this back pipe off. I take it off because it's easier to get to the parts if you do. Take that off, unscrew the solenoid, take that off. And then I've got to take these 6 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got to loosen these screws up. And then I can lift this plate off. And then I've gotten to that section right there. So the amount of work you need to do to get to like actually do a good clean out of your eyes or clean your board or just get to your upper board here definitely requires a little bit more work. This one, you take off 2 frame screws and you've accessed everything that you need to. Now, another thing about this, when it comes to putting it back together, a couple things you need to be careful of. On the bottom down here, on this transfer tube, there's an O-ring that's at the bottom right here. Or it's actually in the middle, I guess, because when it comes together, there's a tube that sticks up right here, and this tube slots inside of that tube. So this O-ring seals that connection between those 2 tubes. If they don't go together nice and straight, there's a good chance that you can tear this O-ring and you'll get a leak from right in this area. Also, something you have to be super particular about on this is this connection point on this board at the front right here. You see there's 8 pins on the front of this board. They need to line up with the 8 holes in that socket right there. And I have seen where people have come in, they're like, man, my board's getting real hot. I turn it on and it gets hot, overheats, and it doesn't light up properly, it doesn't do anything. That's because they've got their board offset from their pins. So they'll put this together with the like the front 4 pins of the main board in the grip, indexing with the rear 4 pins or slots of the upper board, or vice versa. They'll have it set too far. So when you put these back together, you need to watch as you put it together and make sure that those line up properly, and then you can slide it together. It's just things you need to watch for. And if you're not diligent on that, you can put it together wrong, and I don't know if it'll cause an issue, but you could break it if you weren't careful when you're doing that. What else we got? Now we talked about our triggers, talked about some disassembly, solenoids. This solenoid is pretty robust, but it's not really user serviceable. You can take it apart and you can kind of get in and clean it, but if something inside there fails, you really aren't going to be servicing it yourself. On the Planet solenoid that's inside here, I do that, pop that pin out, pop that pin out. See if I can get this out. I can pull the solenoid up and out, and this, you can unscrew these, we can pull the pilot valve out, you can replace the pilot valve if you need to, if that ever goes bad, or you can take out the spool inside here and replace the O-rings that are on the spool. They give you the O-rings in your parts kit in case your spool ever starts to leak or it fails. You can just replace the parts on it and put it back together and be up and running again. There's no parts or replacement for the inside of this. So if you open this up and you clean it out and it still doesn't solve your problem for your solenoid, you're going to replace it. So, doesn't happen very often, but that's something to think about right there. All right, so solenoids. Last thing, maybe regulators, I guess. So they both have a reg. The regulators to both of these are in the grips down here. This regulator is 100% user serviceable internally. So if you need to take it apart in any way, you can, and there are complete step-by-step directions on how to take it apart and how to service it. This regulator is slightly serviceable by the end user. If you have the right tools, it is completely serviceable, but it is not as straightforward. I have videos online of taking this apart and how to get it apart, how to service it. But it is definitely not as basic and straightforward as this. This is much easier to do and much more simple to understand how it's working and physically what parts you need to look at right there. Also, I would say, excuse me, also I would say that the overall manual, this, when you open this up, oh, it fell on the floor. Something I didn't talk about. This right here in the Axe 2.0, this is the manual you get right here. 3 pages. We got a couple different languages, so it's really only one page right there, whether you're speaking English, Spanish, or French, on how to get the gun started. It's a quick start manual, so very basic stuff right there. On the Planet Eclipse manual, look at this. They have the best manuals, I think, in the game. So you got pictures, you got diagrams, you got everything you need, how to do this, how to do that. Plus, if you go to their website, there's even more on the website as how to find the parts, how to find the problems, like what exactly this part is, what exactly that part is. It's very more user-friendly as far as information about their product. You can go to Empire's website, paintballsolutions.com, and get a more expanded manual. It's not as helpful, but it is there, and I do go there every once in a while. I got to look at things as well. So I think that the manual, 100% better, and actually getting a real manual, physical manual, is nice right there. That's it. We got a mess to clean up right here, but I think you can see the difference right there in what you're paying for when it comes to the Planet gun. You're paying a little bit more, but you're getting a different kind of gun. Now, that's not to say that the Axe 2.0 is a bad gun, because it's not. And I hope I'm not coming across as saying that. I just think you're getting more out of the ETHA 3 than you are getting out of the Axe 2.0. Not from a gun that shoots, just from everything else. How it's put together, how easy it is to service it, the parts you get with it, and the support you get for it. So, Axe 2.0 is a great gun. Don't get me wrong. ETHA 3 is, in many different ways, a better option, not necessarily a better gun. So, that being said, hope this is helpful when people asking about Axe 2.0, ETHA 3. Lots of different colors to choose from, all of them. Get on the website, check them out, get one for yourself. Lots of colors, lots of options, lots of different designs available for you at ANSgear.com.